Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
Hello, Special Agents. You have come to the right place. Welcome to The Blacklist Exposed. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs. We are here with a special edition of The Blacklist Exposed with our Season 1 special archive episodes. The following episode appeared on the TV Talk Network for Season 1 of The Blacklist, and we're bringing it to you here on The Blacklist Exposed, remastered and used with permission from TV Talk. We hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy this special episode from Season 1.
You're tuned in to TV Talk, The Blacklist. Welcome to TV Talk, America's #1 TV talk show network. And now it's time for TV Talk, The Blacklist.
Well, if you wanted to be an agent in the FBI, we suggest that you don't have a first day like Elizabeth Keene. Welcome, everybody, to TV Talk, The Blacklist. I'm Troy.
And I'm Dave, and tonight we discussed a fantastic start to The Blacklist with the pilot episode.
It's a great, intriguing opening. We've only seen it about 1,000 times with how much they've been promoting the show. But my real question right from the opening is, who is the guy with Red Reddington? Is he a private security detail?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, until you just now mentioned that, I'd kind of forgotten about that. The very first thing we see is somebody walking up with a briefcase and handing it to him and saying, "Isn't it good to be home?" And he said something like, "We'll see about that." And then that's it. We don't see that guy anymore.
Well, and they go right into the background on Red Reddington right from the start. You know, he's basically a 1990s in the Naval Academy. They're grooming him for admiral, and then he disappears for 20 years. And nobody knows where he's gone, and then all of a sudden, boom, there he is on your front doorstep. "Hi, honey, I'm home for dinner."
And that's one thing they did really well in this show, I think, is they gave you a ton of information, but they gave it to you in a very compact and understandable way. We were really presented with a ton of information in that opening, 6 minutes?
Yeah, it was, I actually looked at my wife and I said, has there been a commercial yet? Because it just seemed like it went on forever, which is fantastic if they can play this off. I think we've said there were about 3 commercial breaks in the entire episode.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I think there was 3. And the first one wasn't until well after 20 minutes in, so.
And I didn't even notice a credit roll, to tell you the truth. So I wonder if there'll be a credit roll next week.
Yeah, there might be. Yeah, again, I didn't pick up on that either, but you're right, it didn't. It just started right up.
Which is great, because it was 50 minutes of jam-packed awesomeness last night. It was just amazing what Booking Camp was able to put on the pen, and then, of course, Eisendrath helping him out, put it on the screen. This was just fantastic television. I don't think we've seen anything like this since probably 24.
I agree, and I really think the competition from some of the cable networks now is really starting to show itself with network TV. They're getting a little gutsier on their storylines. They're showing a lot more blood, quite a bit more violence. I'd say this was right up there with an episode of Homeland or something like that as far as the intensity.
But the one thing that we all know is that if you do have blood on your carpet, the FBI isn't going to clean it for you. You got to do that yourself.
You got to do that yourself. Get that scrub brush out.
So the story for the first episode revolves around Ranko Zamani. Red wants him. The FBI wants him. I mean, this guy sounds like a really bad dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it was well into the episode before we even found out what this episode was going to be like or what it was going to be about. Again, this Ranko Zamani, Red seems to have been assisting, apparently got him into the country, and this guy's about to try to pull off some pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how he was kind of taunting the big boss man there. He's like, haha, you were wrong, weren't you? And he's like, yep, I was wrong. He's like, okay, let's get Elizabeth in here because I want to talk to her because you guys are just a bunch of goofballs that can't even figure stuff out.
Yeah, and we meet Elizabeth in a real great fashion. You know, we just kind of join her as she's late on her first day for work as an FBI profiler. She wakes up a little late. I don't know if the power went out or what happened, but her clock wasn't working. We find out a ton of information about her very quickly. We find out that she's starting her new job. It's her first day, and that her and her husband are also going through an adoption.
Yeah, and of course the best line was when they were outside. You know, Tom looks at his wife and says, you know, my pants are probably on backwards, but you just look amazing. And from the sequence right before that, it looked like he was much more calm, cool, and collected than she was.
Yeah, she was running around, the toothpaste lids flying and brushes rolling and everything going on. But yeah, and that leads again right into the thing as they're standing there having this discussion about what the day's going to bring with this adoption meeting. Here come these giant helicopters over the top of the house, and they're there to pick up Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's definitely a new term for onboarding or orientation for your new job. That's for sure. Welcome committee, rolling out the red carpet. You can do all kinds of puns with that.
That's it. And so for her first day, she finds herself in this incredibly high level meeting because Red Reddington has said that he's only going to talk to Elizabeth Keene.
So this is where we'll bring in our first talkback question of the season. Do you think that Red is Elizabeth's father?
Interesting.
I mean, this entire scene, as they were going through this kind of, we were talked about it last time, the Hannibal Clarice kind of concept, everything he kept saying, he just kept drilling it. Your highlights are gone. The Baltimore is out of you. Your father was a career criminal. All this stuff, he was really honing in like he knew much more than he probably should. And of course, then she comes in and is like, what did you tell him? How does he know all this stuff about my life? And it was, I thought, really interesting that they're going to throw that out there right away to make viewers think that Red could be her father because everything just kind of lined up almost too perfectly, especially when they were talking about the burn on the hand later on in the episode.
Right, yeah, and I really didn't pick up so much that he was her father. Obviously, he was involved in her life in some way, but that's an interesting twist, and it'll be interesting to see what everyone says in the talkback about how they feel about it. But I didn't really get that type of vibe from it. But yeah, that first meeting between Elizabeth and Red was really awkward and intense, wasn't it?
Okay, so maybe not the father, maybe he's the creepy uncle.
The creepy Uncle Red.
He's definitely creepy though, that's for sure.
Yeah, he really is. But yeah, he really gets under her skin with that initial meeting. And the whole sequence of the way the cell moves, like he doesn't move, but the cell does.
Well, I suppose if you don't want your prisoner to escape, better to not unshackle your prisoner and just move the cell instead of moving the prisoner. Could you imagine just bringing the whole courtroom to the guy's jail cell rather than having him come to the courtroom?
But yeah, she's really shaken at that meeting when she goes back into that room and goes, what have you told this man? What, how does he know these things? And they don't have any answers. They don't know how he knows.
And what a great job. The directing and the film sequence when they were having Red talk to her, the close up on his face was just right there. I mean, you could see his eyes go back and forth. You could see his breathing. I mean, they wanted you to really be in the moment with Red as he's like reliving these statements, which makes it really seem like he's got to be related to Elizabeth somehow.
Yeah, even that scene that they've played the death out of on the promos with him laughing, and she goes, "Why should I trust you?" And he does that laugh, and he goes, "Of course not. I'm a criminal." But even that scene played better because it played a little longer. That laugh he does is a little more diabolical and a little longer. It's awkward, but very effective.
Now, right before that, before she goes in, I thought it was really great how they basically sat her down and they said, "Go ahead, profile yourself." And then she goes into the standard, this is who I am. I went to the academy, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, I read your resume too. No, profile yourself. So between that situation where they really want her to dig deep about her flaws and her inadequacies, and then later on, as they're kind of looking at the stock photos there up on the wall of all the different criminals, even Red is like, you're thinking like a cop. Cops are safe. Think like a criminal, so they're trying to get her to go deeper. And it's interesting how that's both coming from the FBI side and from Raymond.
Right. And we see a very quick progression in Elizabeth with this. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a scene a little bit later on where we see that she is every bit as capable of keeping her own as Red is. There's a scene a little bit later on. I don't want to bring it up just yet, but we watch her very quickly grow, if you will, or change, perhaps is a better way of saying it.
Yeah, so then she gets it basically off the phone and she heads downstairs and they're going to have to save the girl before Zamani goes ahead and captures her. So she gets on the phone with Tom. And what the heck is Tom's problem? Was he not standing outside? There was helicopters coming over your house. Give the girl a break. Stop laying the guilt trip on her, on the first day.
Yeah, he's giving her a hard time about the fact that she ain't going to make this adoption meeting, and he's just kind of reading her the riot act a little bit. But I think it's all meant to just show, Elizabeth is a woman who wants it all. She wants the career, she wants the family. They want us to see the pressure that she's under trying to make that work.
So she picks up the daughter from the ballet class and they kind of just cruising right along. I mean, this episode just clipped like so fast. It was just amazing how fast they got to the kidnapping of the general's daughter. And they basically have the roadblock, the gasoline, the gunfire, typical stuff that you would see. But then one of the guys goes, if you want the girl to live, take this gas mask and let her come now. Almost like, trust us, we know what we're doing because there's something bigger at play.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I always draw a lot of cinematic quotes and stuff in, and that had a real Taken feel to it, especially, when she's lifting the child up and she's going, these guys are going to take you, but don't be scared. I'm going to come for you. You have nothing to worry about. I will find you. I thought it was a very intense and very well written scene.
And there was a little bit of a motherly touch to it. I didn't know if it was so much that Elizabeth was feeling lonely for her mother at that moment, or if she was thinking about becoming a new mother, but she gives the girl the pin and then she gives Elizabeth the bracelet.
Yeah, and that bracelet plays pretty importantly through the rest of the show. She doesn't take it off. With everything else that's going on, several times they linger on that bracelet. It was carrying a lot of weight, a lot of significance.
So Ressler's kind of all over the map in this first episode. He doesn't like Liz. Then he's like, hey, nice job there. First day on the job. Let's get going. You can't talk to your husband. And then he's like just standing there on the bridge and then they blow him into the water right off the bridge. That was pretty awesome.
That was really a great opening third. Actually, all of that happened in just before the first commercial break.
That's true.
I had to stop and take a breath. I really did. I was just like, holy mackerel.
So then they switch back over and she's back talking to Red and she has this scarred hand and it happened when she was 14 by the way of a fire and Red is apparently interested in it. And of course, they have this whole, you abandoned your wife and daughter, even though that, Elizabeth is a daughter who basically was abandoned by her mom and dad. So again, there's this similarity between the two of them that their pasts somehow have either been intertwined or they're really intertwined because they are actually family.
Right. Yeah. It's hinted at, but nothing is really said. It's quite obvious Red was involved in her life in some fashion. That's going to be one of the things as we progress through this. It's going to be interesting to see.
So then they're looking for a chemist, a banker. Red's kind of, playing shuffle the cards and really making Ressler kind of squirm in his pants for, all this work that he did, putting up the big board, if you will. And here comes Red and he just moves a whole bunch of stuff around. And that's when they get into this whole, you have to think like a criminal dialogue. And they basically come down to, he basically lost a bunch of people in a chemical attack. So he's going to do a chemical attack on DC and he's going to deliver it via the kid.
Right, exactly. And really this is the only part of the show for me that kind of suffered. A lot of those conclusions were drawn very, very quickly for me. How did you feel about it, Troy? Did you find it like a little push, like you weren't really given time to think about it? It's just like, well, this guy did this, so therefore this must be happening, and so he's going to use the kid to do that. And I was like, oh okay.
Yeah, it's one of those writing for television time's sake kind of thing, but I suppose if you assume that she was top of her class and that she's graduated very quickly, became a profiler, then maybe she does have the chops to put two and two together that fast. You could kind of pass it off as plausible, but at the same time, yeah, definitely came to the conclusion a little bit too quickly, but I'm glad they did because there was just so much more in the episode that was awesome.
Exactly. That was the end of my point I wanted to make, because I'm glad that they did it that way, though, because where we go from there is just fantastic.
I love the line where he says, save your points, the Starwood's not my scene.
That was great.
And then, of course, he only wants blankets and not a comforter, so we obviously know that Red Reddington is a germaphobe.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet, things that we're going to find out about him. So
Elizabeth basically says, I got to get out of here, clear my head, go see my husband. She comes home. We find out that they're going to adopt a girl, and then holy crap, I think was the expression that came out of my mouth about the same time my father-in-law texted me the exact same expression.
That was completely, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting what happened.
I mean, it's one thing to see your husband tied up and gagged and, beaten and bloody and stuff, but to have Zamani sitting in your house with you, I think I almost wet myself at that point.
And this is one bad dude too. This guy ain't playing around. This guy is a hardcore criminal, terrorist, whatever you want to call him. But he had those growths on his neck. There was all kinds of weird things going on with that dude.
You have to assume that that's from the chemical attack when it happened to his village.
Right, yeah. He was disturbing to look at.
We could definitely look at this as Eisendrath, pulling from his alias roots, because it's very symbolic of the same scene when Cindy Bristow finds her fiancé Danny in the bathtub for basically coming out that she was part of the CIA. So we're going to see a lot of alias, I think, things brought into the show, which is definitely why it's attracting me, from the start, because there was a lot of it in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the only thing that didn't ring kind of true on that particular scene, a great scene that it was with Elizabeth working on this high profile case. Don't you think there'd have been somebody watching her house or keeping tabs on what was going on around her?
That's my exact thought. I was like, where is the bodyguard sitting outside keeping tabs on the place and making sure she got home safely, if nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, really just a quick shot of, well, of course, I guess it would have ruined the surprise. I'll say just a quick shot of a guard or a surveillance team dead in their car or something like that, but that would ruin the surprise. Elizabeth would see that and know something was up, and we wouldn't have had the shock of her turning around and finding her husband that way.
So she heads to the hotel, basically interrogates Red and stabs him with a pen in the carotid artery.
That was just absolutely crazy. And again, for me, that was a defining moment for Elizabeth, because we know now she don't mess around either. This lady can do what needs done.
So was it just the stabbing, or is that the point in time when they actually implanted the tracker into Red, do you think?
Well, I don't know, because I didn't realize that they even had a tracker on him until that scene where they were tracking him. And then I thought maybe, he took the hat off and placed it on that little kid. I thought maybe it was in the hat when he took the hat off. But I don't know. They never really did show where the tracker was, did they?
They did not. So I just assumed it came from the pen when she stabbed him. So
that's intriguing. I hadn't considered that, but that would make the stabbing intentional, though. I mean, she went in there with every intention of doing that then.
Could be. It might have been scripted. It might have been planned the whole time. I guess we'll never know, because he wants a different tracker put into him that's more high tech and better than that crap that you put in me before that I could easily take out.
Right. Great scenes with Elizabeth. She comes into that hotel room and she's there to kick butt. She is pissed because her husband is hurt. She's holding Red responsible for it. She lets him know that she's not messing around.
So then we have Red and Zamani kind of chit-chatting on the lawn there, looking at the Capitol building. They're like old chums walking along down the street. Just two bad guys, open public, DC, happens every day.
Yeah, and then of course we have the FBI then tracking them in the background. They have an agent. They're trying to send them along the way. They're telling them, he's 300 yards in front of you. He's 100 yards. They can't find him. They don't see him. Very, very tense scenes.
Yep, and then Wrestler finds Zamani on top of the building with the tracker, shoots him, bang, he's dead. That's one off the list. And then later on, we find out that you have Red again probing Elizabeth. Think deeper. What did you see? What did you smell? All this kind of things. And then she realizes that the stamp on his hand was for the zoo, and that's where the bomb is going to be going down.
Exactly. And she finds the daughter, the little girl that was taken on the bridge, and she walks up and asks if she's okay, and she says, they told me to wait for my dad. That's when Elizabeth discovers that the girl is actually wired with a bomb or a chemical device, I believe.
And Red just got somebody sitting on the shelf like, hey, come on in off the bench, defuse this bomb for me, make sure the kid doesn't blow up, and then we'll make sure she gets back to her dad.
Yeah, there's like 2 minutes, 30 seconds on the clock, and Red calls her, and he's like, I got a guy on the way. And this dude just shows up and disarms this bomb and then takes it and leaves.
And he clips the wire, of course, that makes the bomb go accelerated in time so that it will be more intense, and then finally clips the wire with like 10 seconds to go, I believe it was. And of course everybody's fine, but then of course he's like, hey, I save you, you save me, I take the bomb and I run away.
Have a good day. And something else I missed I wanted to touch on, that scene in the hotel room where she stabs Red in the neck. She literally screams at him, we're not a team. But then at this scene that we're discussing now, where they're standing in the park after the kid's been saved, Red looks at her and says, we're going to make a great team.
And he says it almost kind of crassly. He's just kind of like, yeah, we are going to be good together.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth knows she's in some deep doo-doo at this point. I think it was just a fantastically written and executed episode all the way around.
And of course, if you have a great episodic genre television moment, you have to have the one cliffhanger at the end that's going to make you coming back each and every week. I mean, we've seen before that, he's going to have this blacklist. He has the conversation with everybody at the FBI about it. These are my terms. But then Elizabeth goes home, and of course it's not X marks the spot, it's blood marks the spot. And there's the creaky floorboard with the secret box.
Yes. And that was completely unexpected, but she's ripping the carpet up. She finds the secret door and she opens it up, and inside the box is things that unveil a secret that her husband's been keeping.
Yeah, definitely different currencies, different passports. One might suggest that he might be a spook working for the CIA. But I thought what was most interesting was on the top of the box was etched the same symbol that her burn on her hand was.
Exactly. So, I mean, there are just all kinds of unanswered questions in this that are just going to make you come back week after week to find out what's going on.
But of course, the number one question we have is our talkback question of the week. Is Raymond Reddington Elizabeth Keene's father? You can answer that right in the talkback section. Just push the button, record your voice, send it right in via the app or via the website. We'll look forward to listening to what everybody has to say about this fantastic first episode of The Blacklist.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody thought. I know I'm already looking forward to next Monday. I can't wait for episode 2.
Well, until that time, we will definitely make sure the cases keep coming and the bad guys keep rolling so that we can talk to you every week. Again, I'm Troy.
And I'm Dave.
And we'll be sure to join you each and every week right here on The Blacklist.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of TV Talk The Blacklist. Listen online at tvtalk.com, in iTunes, or enjoy the full experience with the free TV Talk app for Apple iOS and Android. Use the TV Talk app to listen to this week's viewer feedback clips. TV Talk The Blacklist is not affiliated with Davis Entertainment, Sony Pictures Television, or NBC. The views and opinions expressed on TV Talk The Blacklist are solely those of the hosts and do not necessarily represent those of the owner of TV Talk Network or its staff. Copyright 2013, TV Talk Network.
We hope you enjoyed this special version of The Blacklist Exposed, previously aired on the TV Talk Network and used with permission. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinritz. That's at Troy Heinritz on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinritz.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at H_outsider. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of The Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production, copyright 2015. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.